Hello.
Yeah. Hi, Ravi, are you there?
Uh, Hi, Shafali. Yes.
Yeah, actually, Anand just messaged me that he's facing some connectivity issue.
Okay. Okay.
In
So you can take it from here, Shafali. You can take the.
Okay, okay, sure, Ravi.
Yeah, I am leaving. Let me know if anything.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah, hi, Shankar.
Hi.
Yeah, can you tell me about your experience and like what all technologies you have worked on?
So I have
How
total
much experience you have?
yeah I have total 8 years of experience in IT. I started my career as a PHP developer and I moved to Java after 2 years. And I worked on the Java 8, Spring Boot, microservices, and for the database part I worked on the MySQL, MS SQL, and on the DevOps tool like I worked on the Docker, Kubernetes, Circle CI, Jenkins, and um, and Jira and GitHub. And for the domain, I worked on the e-commerce domain, education domain, and movie booking platform.
Okay, okay, fine. Can you tell me like in your what was the architecture of the Spring Boot services like in your project? What was the architecture it was based on?
Yeah, so my Spring Boot architecture is microservice architecture. So we have a API gateway where all the authentication part is done from the Spring Security and JWT token. Throughout the we have services like movie store service and seat layout service, food service, payment service, and loyalty service, gift card service. So in these services, in the payment gateway services, we have a multiple payment gateway Just Pay, Paytm, Phone Pay, MobiQuick, and Airtel Payment Gateway. Some voucher also integrated inside that, and gift card is also integrated. So coming to the gift card, we have integrated with the Quicksilver. So
Okay, tell me about something about like whatever the Spring you said about Spring Security, right? So what are the how you have implemented that and what are the different ways we can do the Spring Security?
So
And it's yeah.
for this integrating Spring Security, you have to do add Spring start.spring.security is inside the your Spring Security inside the your form.xml, and by using that it will automatically integrated, and you have to make configuration file with the CROS. So on that you have to all the you have to authenticate, you have to put all the controller to means the URL you want to be like free, means anyone can access those URL. You have to write that, and also you have to write which URL you need authentication. By default all URL you need authentication, so you need to define that, like the URL which role you want to pass out through
Okay,
the
tell me
current.
like how the token based authorization works,
So
authentication works.
yeah, so in the GWT token, when you are passing some request, you have to in the header you pass the GWT token. Inside that, you have to pass through the principal and authenticate that whether the with the user ID and user role, whether this role is defined for the particular service or not. If it is defined, or the role is allowing the particular URL to pass on, then it will pass and authenticate through the JWT token.
Okay, tell me like have you used like a Spring Cloud config server? Do you know about
Yeah,
what it
yeah.
is?
In Spring Cloud config server, it's a centralized configuration. Suppose you have a configuration you have a multiple configuration, like for the QA, for the live. So in that case, you all of the your application server property is centralized in config server. So in that case, if you want to do some application changes, so priority is given to the config server. All the services are stored inside the config server, and all the application dot property, and all the services will take the property from config server. So if you want to do some changes
And
inside the
config
property,
server picks from where?
so means you have to either store inside the Git in your local repository in the system, or you can we are using Git. So inside the
How you
Git.
can store the property files into the database. It's just that it monitors your Bitbucket or GitHub wherever that
Git
property
in
files are for each microservice, right? So it
right.
monitors that. So
Yeah,
there is
so
no local repository or there is no database. We use it for that. Okay, so that is the like wherever you commit your code, applicate wherever your property files is placed for each application, Spring Boot. So it monitors that config server. So
So
whenever any change is there, it picks on the real time.
yeah, so you for that you have to a special repository you have to create, and in that repository all the config service will be stored, and from there the changes will be reflected to your
Okay, it's
services.
okay. Okay, I got it. So like I'm giving you one scenario. Tell me like how you are managing this. Suppose there are three Spring Boot application, right? So
Hmm.
each is having like one REST API. I'm just
Hmm.
giving example. So one API is calling another API,
Hmm.
okay?
Hmm.
And that second API is doing insertions in the database, CRUD operations,
Hmm.
okay?
Hmm.
And after that, it is calling another API,
Hmm.
okay? Which is in the third microservice,
Hmm.
okay?
Hmm.
Suppose while calling that, it gets any exception, timeout exception or anything, okay?
Hmm.
But when you called that first time, I mean that it has already done the CRUD operations. So how you are rolling back because that complete transaction is failed now, okay?
Hmm.
Because like from one REST API to second REST API, it was successful, CRUD operations done, whatever it is done.
Hmm.
From second to third, it failed. So how
Hmm.
you are how you are managing this transaction?
So you have to use saga design pattern for the managing transactional operation. So in that case, if some transaction is getting failed, so in that case you have to roll back. If you are using that saga design pattern, so in that case all the transaction is getting rolled back.
Three property files in your
Mm,
Spring Boot application. One is dev,
mm,
one is QA, one is production.
mm,
You deploy your code into the dev environment. So all the properties written into the dev property file will be picked. Okay.
mm,
If you deploy the same application into the QA environment, so QA property files will be picked. Okay, so and the prod property files will be picked. Whatever you have written in the application YML or application property file. So how it is managed in the Spring Boot application, I am
so
asking you that.
yeah,
Okay, can you tell me about like what is marshalling and unmarshalling and what are the different ways we can do this?
marshalling.
Marshalling and unmarshalling. Have you heard it?
No.
This is basic we do in the Spring Boot application, right? Converting JSON object into Java, Java into JSON, XML to Java objects, and Java to XML.
Jackson we are using for the suppose you have a you are calling some API third party API, and you want to convert that into Java object. So either you can use JSON or Jackson to convert in your object to get the data from their key and property key and value, or you can use like JSON object dot get property and then convert to your Java object.
Okay. Okay. Any multi-threading frameworks you have used and you know about? Any executor service, thread pools you
Uh,
have used? Like
uh,
any executor service you have heard about? Thread pools?
yeah, thread pools.
Renable.
Yeah, thread pools is used for like you have a multiple thread to be executed. Then all the threads are go to the goes to the thread pool, and it will start execution based on their priority. And suppose some thread is waiting for the resources is wait in the thread pool, and based on the priority, it will pick the thread and go for the execution.
So in the executor service, we use thread pools.
Okay,
You don't know about the executor service, right?
great. We,
Okay. Do you know about like any runnable interface,
yeah,
callable interface?
yeah. So
So
then,
these we use inside executor service also
okay. So,
because we have like methods like submit and all those inside the runnable interface, completable interface.
hmm,
So they provide these methods. And
hmm,
when you do that, so it submit all the threads at same time, whatever the amount you have defined in the thread pool.
yeah.
So, tell me about difference between runnable and callable interface.
Use callable, then in this case, it will respond after the execution is completed. But inside the runnable, you directly call the service, and it will return void. Means the response will be void. It will process the thread, and it will not going to give any response for that.
You tell me about like what are futures? Because with the
Computable
callable
feature.
you get the
Computable feature,
futures
right?
object, right? There are, yeah, completable future. So like callable interface returns the future objects.
Yeah.
So
So
how yeah.
yeah. So in the case of Carnival feature, it will promise that you will get response after response after give means once you call through callable feature, it will execute the service, and after execution is completed, callable feature is give you response in.
Okay. Tell me about any event-based processing you have used. Do you know about like Kafka?
Yeah. So
Have you
in
used that
Kafka,
Kafka?
yeah. So in
So
the
you are
Kafka,
using Kafka, yeah, like hands-on. You do you have hands-on on Kafka?
yeah, some message service is consumer. It will read the information
Okay,
for
tell
the
me like
particular
what
person.
is the benefit of this Kafka
It
consumer
is
producer over other topics and other there are other event processing also like IBM MQs, JMS. So what is the benefit of this Kafka?
Kafka is like it is provide you asynchronous service, means you put the data inside the stream, and after that there is multiple partition inside the Kafka topic. You have multiple replicas for the same, and if any data is getting any suppose leader is getting down, then it will assign automatically another partition to the for the leader.
Okay. 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 Tell me about for the exception handling, what framework you are using. Do you know about like controller advice and all those
Yeah,
things? Have you used that?
yeah.
So how does it work?
If you mark all the global scenario you can handle from the controller advice, so you can write method in the controller advice, and you can log all those data on the controller advice.
Okay. Any caching framework you have used? Like, do you know
I
about any
use Hazel.
caching? How?
I have worked on the Hazel cast. So for the movie storing scenario, we have a because this is frequently used data. Suppose you are, I am on the movie platform. You have to generally people first go to the this page of the all the movie listing. So this all the movie listing and coming soon movie are stored in the Hazel cast cache in the key value pair, getting called. So in that case, it will put the data from the Hazel cast server, and from there it will pick the data and show to the user, so that a database call it is not going to be happen.
Okay, no problem. So I was asking like any framework you have, like there is like cache. So
Hazel
have
cast
you worked on?
I explain means I have used Hazel cast.
Yeah,
I
yeah. Yeah.
am
I was
explaining
asking,
you.
have you worked on Hibernate's JP?
Yeah, JPA I worked on the JPA and Hibernate both.
In the JPA,
Hmm.
we when you write any queries, you give like native query equals to true. So what
Yeah.
does that mean?
So which database you are using, so through that query it will read the data, raw query from the above line, means what query you have written, and then it will pass through the database and give you result.
No, it doesn't mean that because with the query, when you write on any like in the repository class, so it doesn't mean that those are native query equals to true. So native query, we can write native. I mean, native query equals to true simply means that they will be executed as it is in the database. They will not be mapped to any object.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that's
like
what
we
I was telling, that suppose some data, some
No,
query,
so
raw
but
query.
am saying that you can write the normal queries also, which will if you give like any queries, you are saying if you write above in the above line. So when you write the queries on the above line also, so it doesn't it can be executed as an object mapping also.
Okay.
So the which you are saying find by ID and this, so that is native query equals to false inbuilt.
Yeah,
But when
this
you
is
define
inbuilt
a
query.
native query equals to true, hmm?
Mhm. That is inbuilt query. Find active by ID. It is inbuilt query. You need not to write any query for that, because JPA automatically indicate that each active is in your database, and ID is in your database. It will directly find from the query. But if you are writing at the rate query, and inside that you are writing raw query, it will directly go to fetch the data from the database. through that raw query.
But yeah, but I'm saying that instead of inbuilt methods also, we can write those queries on those rep in the inside the repository also. If
Yeah.
you write manual queries also, so
Mm.
that can be also like executed as inbuilt query also. Okay, so it
Okay.
doesn't
Okay.
mean that they are native query equals to true. But you have to specifically write on the queries which you are writing above that line.
Okay.
Okay, so native query equals to true.
Okay.
Okay, tell me like in the Java 8 we have introduced the default methods, okay?
Yeah.
So what are the default methods and why it was needed to include them?
So actually, previously when you have written some interface, and interface is used on multiple classes. So in that case, suppose some new method you need to write. In that case, you have to change all those services which is implemented by the particular interface. So in that case, if for remove this type of situation, you have to write default method. So if you are writing some default method, you need not to implement on each of the method, means each of the services which implemented the particular interface. So you can write the default method inside your interface, and you can use in any of the classes which is implementing that same.
Okay. And like what are like ways or methods you are using to call from like one REST API to another REST API?
So you can use REST template. We are using Fen client for the communicating with the one service to another service. Proxy will be created for the Fen client, and you can they are directly called. We need not to write in one interface. We define the method, and you can directly call from the proxy and communicate with the services. So but you can use REST template also for communicating with the services.
So you are using like REST
fen
templates?
fen client, I am using Fen client.
Okay. Like in the backend database, like you can write any stored procedures or you have hands-on on the
No
backend also.
store procedure I have not written. It is not needed till now.
Okay, so you like normal queries you can write,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, Jay, actually I need to take another interview.
Yeah,
It is
sure.
scheduled at 7:30.
Okay,
Okay. So
okay,
I'll
sure.
give my feedback to HR, okay?
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.